Hello, today is November the 12th, 2020. My name is Evlia Partida. I'm interviewing Elvia Partida for the University Library Special Collections and Archives at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, hereafter abbreviated as UTRGV. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Mrs. Partida, that this interview will be placed in the University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. The University Library Special Collections and Archives will archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation you are willing to share. UTRGV University Library will retain copyright and non-exclusive right to the interview and any other materials you donate to Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting to make sure you agree with our interview procedures before we continue. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say, yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each question. Do you give University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV consent to archive your interview and your materials at the UTRGV University Library?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
I agree.
Do you agree to allow UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
I agree.
Do you grant the University Library Special Collections and Archives consent to share your Zoom interview with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voices of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
I agree.
As you recall, we previously filled out a pre-interview form. We use information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin before Voces sends it to UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives. We would have stripped out any content information for yourself or family members, so that will not be part of your public file. Your public file will only be accessible at the UTRGV University Library. The final 2 questions ask for your consent on what I just described. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview and your public file available to researchers at UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives?
Yes, I agree.
On occasion, UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and Voces receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you for your consent. Your experiences and stories mean a lot to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives. I look forward to what you say in the interview. I will now ask. Okay. Thank you for your time. Like I said earlier, your stories and experiences are valuable to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and the Voces Project. Particularly for us at UTRGV Special Collections, we are committed to preserving the stories of Mexican Americans and Latinos from South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, and those who work closely with these populations during this COVID-19 pandemic. Because of the nature of your experiences with COVID, I know you will have many meaningful stories and experiences to share on how COVID-19 has impacted these roles you carry out in your life. So, before I ask you to share your stories about your life in this pandemic, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I am Elvia Partida, and I live in Brownsville, Texas. I'm not sure exactly how much information I need to give right now, since we're going to be going into a series of questions. But I'm the mother of 3 children. I have my oldest daughter. She's in the university. I have my middle daughter that's also just started the university this year, and a son that's in high school. He's in 10th grade. And that's just a little bit about myself. I'm currently unemployed, but we'll go into some of the details, I guess, as we continue.
Mm-hmm. So my first question is, when did you first hear about COVID-19?
When they started in the news talking about this pandemic, it started kind of like a hearsay kind of thing, a lot of news, but not really um, I would say, taking things in very serious. We also had some time back the swine flu, and we didn't know how that was going to go until things panned out. So as this started to go out, we figured it was going to be something like that, maybe like um, the bird flu. We also had something like that, and it didn't impact everywhere, like it did with this COVID situation. So it just we weren't sure. It just started at the beginning of the year. We started seeing things happening around the world and in certain areas, and as it was progressing, so we started getting a bit concerned, and it was just taking it one day at a time.
Mm. What were your initial thoughts about COVID-19?
Well, kind of like the same as I was saying, we weren't sure exactly how much this was going to impact people and how severe it was. We didn't know it was going to be impacting a lot of people and very severely. Some of the other cases, I mean, I know that we've had a lot of deaths with other illnesses that we've had around the world. And this is not the first pandemic that this world has gone through, but it was just difficult to foresee what was going to happen and how severe things were going to be for each different country as it was going through.
Mm. At what point did you realize this pandemic was a serious life-altering event?
I was working, and things were getting a little more complicated as we continued working on every week as the months progressed into the year. I worked for a company that manufactures parts for vehicles, and we were coming to the point where we were going to have to shut down or at least reduce the number of people that we had working. And as things kept on increasing, we started seeing the decline of the airlines. That got scary because we don't have transportation, limited, movements of merchandise were coming in, and everything just started to shut down. And it became scary because we have never gone through anything like that. I mean, we have situations when we go through a hurricane where we have to shut down. It's just for a few days, just until we get things under control, water subsides and just subsides. I'm sorry. But not to the point where we're shutting down schools, we're shutting down businesses, we're shutting down restaurants, we're shutting down stores. Everything that we need was not available for us. And it started to become very real how severe this was. But at the same time, we start seeing, since we're like further back in the game, as this pandemic started to go through, seeing how other countries were other countries and um, just as it was continuing for us, one thing after another. And so it started to get a little more real and more scary.
Mm. Over the last few months, what news media or other sources do you rely on to keep you informed about coronavirus?
I use the internet a lot, from the point where I don't have regular television, so we have to do everything on the internet. So I started subscribing to a lot of the channels, ABC, CBS, NBC, and just a lot of the different media that is out there, people documenting and providing information. So I started joining a lot of those websites to get the information. Also from friends and family that do have actual connection to uh, television local channels. They would provide information, on what they heard and what was coming on the news.
Mm. And would you take the first COVID-19 vaccine available on the market? Why or why not?
Well, usually when we have vaccinations, we have gone through many years of I guess testing. So back at this first, I already had COVID, and so I was impacted pretty bad. I know with like the flu, every time I take the flu vaccine, I end up getting impacted. And I know it's supposed to help you not get sick during the flu season, but I get really sick. So I try not to put on that specific vaccine. Everything else, I mean, I haven't had any issues with all the vaccinations that I've had since I was a child. But as far as trying something new, not unless it's actually tested a little bit more. It's scary to think that, you know, we have to wait longer to actually get a good vaccine out in the market. But I understand at the same time that we have the need for a vaccine quickly. I just don't know how safe it's going to be and how it's going to impact my body, especially after already having had COVID. I don't want to have it more severe than what I already had it. If I was to have some of the symptoms that some other people have, I wouldn't be so bad. But I was in a very bad situation, close to actually making it into the hospital. So I really think about that because I'm the support of my family and I can't afford to be in the hospital.
Does your family hold the same beliefs as you about COVID-19, or are there some members who take it more seriously or lightly?
No, I think they're all the same. I mean, we all are taking our precautions. Every time we're out to buy groceries, we wear our masks. We never had any issues with that. I know that it's protection for everyone, for other people from us that we were sick. I mean, I did not go out anywhere, but protecting us from others and others from us, if that's the case. But yes, my family's my kids and my parents and my sisters and their families, everyone is taking the precautions not to get sick. And they don't think this is something that is very light, like it's not going to happen. Like I've seen a lot of people, they just didn't think it was going to affect them, and it affected them severely. But we were just listening to the news and trying to figure out what was actually going on. We have to take all of that into consideration before making decisions. But we don't play around with our health and we don't play around with our lives. So we are very careful. We're trying to stay as much in quarantine as possible. And even though some restrictions have been lifted in our area, they come and go. As it starts getting a little worse, they start asking us to stay indoors a little more and having more restrictions, rest opening, closing, or just depends, you know. But no, we don't take it lightly. We don't also take it on the extreme either. We're just being sensitive and trying to keep it as real as possible.
For these next set of questions, I'd like to talk about how you've seen COVID-19 affect family members, friends, and other loved ones. So, what were your first experiences with COVID?
Well, I started seeing that a lot of the people where I worked started getting sick. So we started seeing a lot of people missing work because they had to go home. And so we started seeing like, oh my goodness, we already have it here in Brownsville. Before it was like, oh, it's in China, it's in Europe, it's in other countries, and not as much here in the US. But as we started getting the wave here, we started seeing, well, in several states, and we figured it's going to take a while before it gets here to Brownsville. But no, it started getting here immediately. And it's like, wait a minute, you know, we need to start doing something to protect ourselves. Even though we were going to work and everything else, we were not asked to wear masks or anything like that because everything was still very, very light at that moment. But we started seeing that people were getting sick. And so what are we doing to protect ourselves? At that point in time is when we started shutting down because of how severe things were getting, and they were asking people to stay home and trying to quarantine and get this thing contained. So not being at work anymore, I started hearing people, emails, text messages from family members, that know someone else, friends that I know. They were telling me that at their job, they were still having to work, or that they were having a lot of cases in their facilities that, a lot of employees were getting sick and having to be sent home, a lot of people dying. So once you start hearing the deaths of those people, it starts getting very scary because you don't know how it's going to hit you. Then a little closer to home, we started getting some of our family members sick. My father got sick, and at the same time, because he was in the same household as my mom, she ended up getting sick as well. But he started with the symptoms first. And my nephew, he was staying a few days with my parents, and so he ended up getting sick as well. I, in turn, am in a separate household, but I had to take my dad to the doctor because he wasn't feeling well. So the first time we had him not feeling well, I ended up taking him to the clinic so that they can check him out. We figured it was something to do with his heart because he was having pains in his chest, and not so much trouble breathing. It was just pain, and he had gone through a triple bypass a few years back, about 3 years back. And we were concerned that it was something to do with his heart. So we just wanted to get like an EKG going and checking to see that he was okay. They told us that he had a minor episode some time back. They didn't get to tell us exactly what, but we couldn't wait, anymore. We got him tested, and also during all this, taking him back and forth to the doctor to get tested, and to the hospital at the final point because he couldn't breathe anymore. He was having a difficulty. So we ended up finding out that he had COVID. The testing was just very slow. It was taking too many days to actually get the results. We found another facility that actually does the testing that same day. So we ended up getting tested later on, just to make sure that if we were sick or not. So by that time, I was exposed to him having the virus, and so I ended up getting sick. He ends up in the hospital, and I had already started with a little bit of symptoms, and so we got my dad into the hospital on a Sunday, and so he was there the whole week. He started getting sick. My mom started getting sick. My nephew got sick as well. So we all started experiencing all the symptoms differently, but we started getting symptoms. My dad died 2 weeks after, and my nephew got better. My mom got better, and I got better. We ended up getting treatment, but because we knew already that he had the illness, and him being in the hospital, it was already kind of late for him to actually get help because all the oxygen treatments and everything else that they were doing in the hospital was not enough for him to beat the virus. He just was already very advanced in the illness in his lungs, so they couldn't help him out much. They tried to do as much as they could with medication and stuff. So he had a stroke along the process there, and he ended up dying. So it was just very difficult for the family to go through that situation. But that's where it hit us here at home, that we have family, close family that even though we tried to protect ourselves, we're not sure exactly where and at what point in time my father got sick. We're thinking that it was one of those visits that he had made to the doctor, or he stopped at the store to pick up some groceries or something. Even though we tried to contain my parents to their house and us taking them anything that they needed, it was still a little moment in time where if people were not following the rules, people were not wearing masks at the very beginning, and so we're thinking he got sick somewhere along the way in between those few days, and and that's how it affected us here at home.
Mm.
I'm sorry I went kind of long with that.
Now, how were your experiences during self-isolation?
Well, it wasn't so bad when I wasn't sick. um, because we were just here at home, started figuring it's kind of like a mini vacation. I started fixing a lot of things here and there and doing a lot of the chores and things that I while being at work had not had the chance to actually work on. So I started fixing a lot of things, finishing up tasks and just getting the list, all the chores of things that needed to get done. Everything got checked off, and I was so happy because I was being productive. Um, After a while, it starts getting like, we can't go anywhere. We can't go to restaurants to eat like normal. It's no longer a vacation. It's no longer, fun, or I'm doing all of these things. Taking care of the chores is pretty good because I like to make sure that things get done. But being restricted to the hours you can actually go out, and whether you can go excuse me, to certain stores or you can't, or you things aren't available for you, just the limited items, the resources that bathroom paper, people went out all crazy, taking all of these things, and food. So it gets a little frustrating as days continue to go by. More resources are not available. Things, I mean, groceries and things that we can't get our hands on, things that we're used to having, we're having to restrict ourselves from using for that period of time. But it's like, okay, we can still manage. I mean, we don't have a problem with that. Eating here at the house, I mean, it was okay. After a while, it does get tiring because you're used to buying things from restaurants and stuff, but we still dealt with it. Then I ended up getting sick, and so that means I had to stay in my room, isolated from my children, and we didn't have anyone coming over to the house because obviously everyone had to be in their own houses. My sisters and I did not visit or see each other except through Skype meetings or Zoom meetings, but I had to stay in my room while I ended up taking all my medication and trying to get better. I was in my room for about a month and a half. So it gets very frustrating just being stuck in one place, not being able to walk out of my room and say, this is the rest of my house that I could see. It was just me in my room, and I have a bathroom because it's my master bedroom. But not being able to go to my kitchen and prepare myself something to eat, that was frustrating for me. I didn't have the strength to do a lot of stuff because the way the virus affected me, it affected my lungs, and I couldn't breathe very well. I couldn't walk much. I was just very tired. And during that period of time, also, it's the time when my father passed away. So depression kicked in because it was very sad to have lost him. Making all the preparations with my sisters, everything through Zoom meetings, and trying to get all the funeral arrangements, which took forever because there's so many people that passed away that we couldn't actually get funeral arrangements for my father soon enough. It took like 2-3 weeks for us to bury him. So it took a while to do all of these things. So everything being done from my room, when I finally was able to get out of my room just to be out and about in the house, it felt so weird. At the same time, a little bit liberating, but very not claustrophobic, but at the same time a little bit. It was just, and I still would wear the mask indoors with my kids because I wasn't sure. I said, I don't know how long this is going to take for me to get rid of the virus completely. And even though I tested for the third time, the first time I tested negative, I still had symptoms. I think it was a false test. The next time I tested thinking it's already over, I ended up testing positive still. So I had to extend it to another test. After my father passed away and we buried him, I finally went to get the final test where it came out negative. So I was still scared, thinking I still feel some symptoms. I still don't feel 100% because you don't. It takes a long time, long time for you to actually feel better from getting the illness out of your system. And it leaves you very weak. So after being confined, I was happy to at least walk about the house, not to mention to at least be able to go out and buy groceries and do something, go pick up some food at the restaurant through the drive-through. Just going out in public was very uh, overwhelming, that I would get home and I would be extremely tired. I couldn't do the physical work to actually go to the groceries and back because my body was just so tired. I was very weak and I got tired very easily. So it took me months to actually recuperate from all of that. But it felt a little bit better not to be just confined to my bedroom.
Mm. And what were your experiences in getting tested for the virus? Like, what were your thoughts on how COVID was being treated here in the Valley?
Well, we didn't have the resources. We had places that actually were testing, but those tests were being provided to like CVS pharmacies. That's where we took my father to get tested. And the test results were back in 5 to 7 days. 5 to 7 days makes a big difference. You need to know immediately that you have the illness so that you can either treat it the way that it's supposed to be or take the other medication, depending on what's going on with your body. In this case, because we didn't know exactly what was wrong with my father, he wasn't getting treated for COVID. He was just getting treated for heart pain, for just muscle pain, relaxing and taking some antibiotics, thinking that it was something that he might be catching, like a cold or something. But we didn't know for sure that he was sick from COVID. So the test results that we needed to have them immediately. And we did not have that type of testing here. We didn't have the capacity to take that. Perhaps a test could be done. The testing that we ended up getting was the kind that you check on the nose. But it's not something that we could do. I need to answer the door. Can you hold on for a second really quick?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll pause.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the testing that we had was just too long to get the results. Not necessarily that the test was not quick. Just getting appointments to begin with was very difficult. Trying to get scheduled time available. There weren't a lot of places that we had available to get tested. Then when you did get the test, it would take 5 to 7 days to actually get the results. So that was just too long to actually find out, and a lot of things can happen in that 5 to 7 period of time. And so it was just frustrating not to know. We're thinking that maybe that's why we didn't get my dad into the hospital or to get treatment soon enough, because it was just so long to actually find out. When my father was in the hospital, immediately when he went in, he got tested and he found out right away that he was positive for COVID. So if we would have known right away, yes, he's starting to have symptoms, we could have given him the medication that he needed, but the testing was not available. We started researching a little bit more in what other locations we actually had available that we could actually test, that we can actually get a result immediately. It was taking a long time because also those places were packed. They were not available. You have to pay. And like I did not, my insurance would not kick in to actually get those tests done. The other places like CVS and other facilities that we had here in town that were actually available, they would take the insurance. But again, the testing was taking a while to actually get scheduled, and the results were still, a long time. As the time progressed, I got sick. I ended up getting tested, and I got the results that same day, but I had to pay $75, $80, I think, for every test that I ended up having to take. And that was a series of 3 tests that I got. First time came out negative, and I knew I had symptoms. The second time it was positive, and then finally the third time I ended up getting a negative result, and I was finally out of the COVID. Um, but it's why is there a need to pay so much money to actually get these results? It's unbelievable. And there were groups of people going in. I could count cars and cars and cars just to get tested in the morning, and then they had people in the afternoons, and it was just unbelievable. So much that was needed, and immediate results are required, and we were not getting them. I ended up getting my children tested, but also through one of the other sites that the city provides. Because on that one, I knew they were not exposed to me, but because they were in contact here in the house, they ended up having to get tested as well. So luckily, none of them had the virus, thank God. Um, we were able to get them tested, and everything came out negative. So, but yes, the availability of tests, um, it was there, but not in the numbers that we needed it. There were a lot of people that needed to be tested, and not everyone was getting it. Unless you had the money, you can actually go and pay for it, but that's not fair. That's not fair, because there's a lot of people. We're lucky enough to actually had the money available to take the test, but there's people that don't have the money to go pay that and or wait.
Mm. And when did your mom and nephew test negative as well?
It was shortly before we buried my father. Um, my nephew didn't get impacted so much. He had a lot of bleeding from his nose, and a lot of, he ended up getting kind of like the influenza and COVID at the same time. So he got treated for influenza and also COVID, because he got tested and he came out positive. But his lasted, I think, about a week, 2 weeks at the most, and it was very quick. The symptoms, he didn't have, very much. Um, he's very young. He's, I think, 11 years old right now, going on 12. So he did not get impacted that much. My father, he's he was an older person, 74 years old. So it really hit him hard, because I'm thinking that his lungs were the most weak in his body, his heart and his lungs. He had been a smoker for many, many years. And if anything was weak, it would have been his heart and his lungs, because I don't know how long it actually takes for his lungs to recover from years of smoking. But it had been many years that he stopped. But I'm sure that, he had scars and just difficulty, with that issue. My mom did not get symptoms like with breathing. She ended up getting nausea and not wanting to eat, no appetite. So she just got weak and very thin. She just forced herself to eat the minimum just so that she could take her medication. But with me, it was just more difficult, because I was having problems breathing. I've had problems with my bronchioles for a long time, that they got affected when I lived in Georgia, and there was a lot of pollen in the air, and all of that caused my lungs to just get really messed up. And so I tried to protect myself as much as possible, but I guess I still had a weak immune system, that it affected my lungs really bad.
Mm.
So as we were all getting exposed to the virus, it took a while before we ended up getting cleared out. In my case, because mine was more severe, it took me a lot longer to actually get past the virus. So I was the last one to actually get cured.
Mm. Can you share with me some stories about the time when your father was in the hospital? When was this? Did you get to speak with him? And what were your fears?
when my dad goes into the hospital, he only had his phone. We were trying to get him a tablet so that we can actually have like Zoom meetings with him. His type of phone was the old style where it's a flip phone. You can just open it up and that's it. The screen in his phone is very small and it's not a smartphone. So we didn't have the capacity to actually load an app and be able to speak with him. So some of the nurses or the doctors would actually get their phones and get them, especially with my mom, they were able to do FaceTime with him so that he can calm down. He was a very anxious person, did not like to be lying down or just sitting down for a long time, always active and moving and doing things around the house. Busy, a busy person all the time. Um, so it was difficult not to be able to talk to him, not to see him. When my father was ill from his heart, that he had a heart operation, they told us, one of you guys can stay here. So my mom and my sisters and I were there at the hospital from the moment he went in to after the operation. And then we spent the night, we took turns rotating every night. Someone would stay with him so that he wouldn't be by himself. Anything that he needed, someone would be there to support him and also help out with the translation in case they ended up getting nurses or doctors that did not speak Spanish. But in this case with COVID, no one was able to be there with him. So it was difficult to just be away and just being on the phone, calling him all the time. We would call him in the morning, call him in the afternoon. And that's me calling my sister, my other sister, my other sister, and my mom. So he would have 5 calls in the morning, 5 calls in the afternoon, and sometimes in the middle of the day, just to make sure he would eat, take his medication, how he was doing, how he was feeling. But that communication is difficult because you're used to taking care of your family and being there present and supporting. But when you can't be there for the person, it's very difficult. We had to just rely on the phone. When we were getting to the point where we were going to give him a laptop or a tablet or something so that we can actually have the meetings with him, he got a stroke and he was not awake anymore. He was put into an induced coma and he was intubated. So the rest of the week that he was there, and the whole week that he was there from Sunday to Friday that he passed away, he was in that induced coma, intubated, and it just did not get any better. At that time, we had no communication with him because he was under. So it was just the doctors and nurses that were providing updates for us in the mornings and in the afternoons, making sure that they were giving him all the treatments that were available. And so the nurses were wonderful. The doctors were wonderful in both hospitals. He was in the Brownsville hospital at the very beginning when he got COVID. And then because of the stroke, they sent him over to Harlingen to get the blockage that he had taken out. They were going to operate, but he was just not in a very good condition to get operated. His oxygen levels were dropping too much all the time. And so they couldn't stabilize him. They just tried to maintain him as much as they could, but things were not getting any better. And we started realizing that he was going to pass away because he started having organ failure, and it was just a matter of time. And that's the communication that we ended up having with the doctors, and where they explained everything to us. We finally approved to remove all of the tubes and medication that they were giving him so that he would pass calmly. And so that was a collective decision with my sisters and, of course, my mom that had to make the decision for that, just to make sure that if not to be on life support, because he could continue for another week, with that situation, and that wasn't correct for him to be going through that.
Mm. And how were the funeral preparations during this climate?
Well, that's another thing, because there were so many deaths in the valley and here in Brownsville. As I was talking to other friends and people and stuff, they would tell me, "Oh, this funeral home has like so many people that are pending to be buried. And so there were so many people on a day-to-day basis that were dying and dying and dying. Of course, funeral homes were overwhelmed with people, not to mention that they were also having their people getting sick. So we don't have funeral arrangement members that can help us in completing all of these things, because they were having to send their people to the doctor or to get checked out as well. It took a long time, before we could actually bury my father. But we finally were able to get that done. There were some families that were wanting to do the viewings and just spending time in the funeral home with the body. It was a decision from my mom not to do that, even though this is something coming from Mexican families. We tend to stay in the funeral home. In Mexico, you have the custom to spend the whole night, taking care of the family, allowing other family members from out of town to come in and be there with the family, be there with the body, do their prayers and do the velación, which is just the being there with the person. But we couldn't do that. We were told that because he had COVID, we could not have an open casket. My father did not want to get cremated. That would have been the best thing, because we could have the ashes with us, but he did not want that. So we just had to wait until we could do a direct burial. Even though this was something quick that we wanted to make sure and we would get through, that still took a long time, because they needed to schedule us in. When is the next available appointment for our funeral directors to have time to tend to this family, to our family? Because there were burials every 2 hours, I believe. So they would have to prepare the funeral arrangements for this person, and then in 2 hours they have to have another one being done, and then in 2 hours they had another one being done. So their days were booked basically, and so we did not have available slots very close to when the person passed away. So it's not like normal days where the person dies and then in 2-3 days you're already burying the person. My father died on the 24th, and we ended up burying him until the 6th, I think, of the next month. So it was days, many days before we could actually do that. And you don't get closure for stuff like that until you finally finish with that activity. And so it was very difficult for the family to deal with that, because it's like, well, what do we do meanwhile? I mean, we had to call family in Mexico, friends, and everybody else getting notified. So we had a lot of time to actually think and talk and just trying to deal with that, get paperwork taken care of, make the payments to the funeral home, and just get all of those activities completed. But it was just weird, because it's like we're doing all of this and we haven't finished burying my father. So it was difficult, but understood, and we were understanding the situation. But it was still hard, not to be able to complete what we needed to do, because there's an overwhelming amount of people that were dying.
Mm-hmm. And how did COVID affect your family's finances?
Finances, well, that's a doozy. My employer let go of a lot of people. They put us on furlough for a period of time, and that means that the plant shut down. They only had extremely essential personnel going to the plant just to take care of a few shipments that were needed, and everything else was shut down. After a period of time, I think I was on furlough from March 27th. Shortly after spring break, we were still working during those first few weeks that we ended up getting a shutdown. And then the furlough comes into play. A furlough guarantees me to have my job once the situation is completed, and I have a job once, well, time goes by, and then I get a a phone call from my plant, and they tell me that they're gonna need to let me go because they're cutting back on personnel. To me, that was very devastating because I have been with this company for 27 years, going on 28 years of my life. I'm 53 years old. So the majority of my time I've been with this company, and I loved working there. I loved my job and everything else that I did. But to actually uh, have them tell you, um, we're cutting back on your position or whatever the situation was, we're letting you go. It was very difficult. It was devastating. I am the one that provides for my family. So not to have the money that's coming in, that cuts us off. I mean, that is, I'm gonna have to look for a job as it is right now because of the situation. I've been on unemployment for a while because I haven't been able to find a job that is good enough to get me compensated for similar to what I was getting in that company. And I understand that the company that I used to work for um, provided a very good salary. Then again, I've been doing a lot for this company for many years, and since 1993 that I started working with them. So just starting off at a very low position, going up in the ranks, got me to where I was earning pretty decent money. And so we don't have a lot of companies here in town where we can just jump to another one and be earning about the same pay. Um, there aren't any. So it's difficult to actually get to that point. Um, so yeah, money has been, a difficult situation. I do have to thank that the company that I worked for did give me a compensation package, severance pay. And so they covered me with insurance and salary for several weeks, and so that got me going through, several months of the pandemic. Then it cuts off, and then I'm having to search for insurance benefits for myself and my children, which is very difficult to do, especially right now with the situation with the pandemic, that you can get expenses in the hospital that are in the thousands of dollars. I think with my father, um, just the 2 weeks that he was in the hospital, I think it was about 50 some thousand or 60 some thousand dollars in expenses in everything that they did to him. And because they have Medicare, Medicaid, the that portion got covered. I don't know what part we're gonna need to pay, but they had coverage at least for that. I don't have any coverage, so if I get sick again, I'm gonna be in debt with the hospital for the rest of my life. Just to pay for those thousands of dollars. So that's why I'm trying not to get sick. We're trying to make sure that none of us in the family get sick, or my sisters and their families, because uh, an expense like that will break us. It'll put us in bankruptcy. We'll have to, sell the house or whatever. I can't afford that. I cannot afford that. And not having a job and not having a job or an insurance that covers us for those expenses is very difficult. And I don't qualify for any of the benefits from the government. I don't get Medicare, Medicaid, because according to them, I earn too much money, used to earn a lot of money. So it becomes very difficult to qualify for any programs. And the programs that you do qualify for the insurance, it's very expensive. It's $500, $600, $800 a month. Where am I going to get $500, $600 a month or $800 a month to get a good package for insurance when I don't have a job? I understand these people. It's like I am getting a minimum amount of pay from unemployment, and I'm either going to spend it all in insurance. What am I going to feed my kids? I do not qualify for um, food stamps because, again, I I qualify. I do not qualify because I earn too much money. I used to. I no longer have money. So because you have money in the bank, because you have this, and because you have whatever you end up having available, they still consider that you're not needy. You don't need this right now. Other people do need it. And yes, that is true. thank God, whatever money I have saved, I've been able to sustain this family because I am not getting any assistance from the government or from anywhere else except the unemployment, which I've been working all my life since I was 18. Um, I've never been laid off. I've never been out of work. I've never been fired. I've always worked. So it's very difficult to be in this situation right now where I can't do much.
Mm-hmm. And how was your experiences and all? Anything else you wanted to talk about?
Um, I don't know if anything else is, I guess I basically covered a lot of that with everything that I've talked about. And I think I can go on talking about a lot of the experiences, but there's other people that have been in worse situations where more family members have gotten sick, um, more family has died. We're thankful that at least we've only lost one person in the whole family between my parents and my sisters and their families and us. But that's still hard. That's still a very difficult moment for us. And um, so we have to be thankful to God that we have been fortunate to not be impacted as much as other people.
Mm-hmm.
And because we have heard a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of videos, YouTube videos of people that took the pandemic very lightly at the very beginning. They figured it's not going to happen to me, it's not going to happen to my family. So they didn't care. They kept on having parties and gatherings and stuff. And then their wives start getting sick and they die. And then so now they have a family where the mom is missing, the child is without a mom, the husband is without a wife, or vice versa. The husband is missing, or sons and daughters, and people are dying. And then they think about it, and it's like, I should have done something at the very beginning. I should have been more aware, and they weren't. We were trying to protect us as much as possible. Unfortunately, my dad got sick, and if people had done their part, we could have still had my father around and a lot of the elderly people. But it's not just elderly people that were impacted. It's a lot of young people that we've seen and I've heard of. Other family members that died at the age of 40s and 50s. That's still young. That's still young people. So it's not fair, that they end up dying. Some people in 30s that I heard that actually passed away. So there's people that get affected in different ages. But it's not fair. We did not ask for this illness. We're just trying to deal with it, and trying to protect our families as much as possible from getting sick.
Mm-hmm. This next set of questions focuses on your stories and experiences around your work life. So what was your job and what company did you work for?
I was a supplier quality engineer, and I worked for Trico Products. Um, Again, we manufactured windshield wipers. I was working 20, close to 28 years with the company. And the job was basically evaluating suppliers on their performance for the components that they provide for us, and the raw materials as well. So it was just dealing with the condition of the materials that they provide, making sure that it was in good quality, and evaluating the suppliers' performances, and just meeting with them, trying to help them with um, improve on their performance, and maintaining the suppliers in good scores that we would evaluate them on a monthly basis.
And what were your experiences with COVID while you were still working, like during the time that you were going to work?
Well, at the very beginning, we were not taking any precautions because nobody was doing anything here in the valley. Once we had the shutdown that we had to go home, then people started wearing masks and wearing gloves, and trying to stay home because it was mandatory. And before that, nobody was doing anything at work or anywhere else that we could see here in our area. So if you're not told to do it, you're not going to do it, because you're not going to see yourself being the odd one and wearing these things, even though it's for your protection. we didn't think it was actually happening and passing along just by touching surfaces and things like that. So we, the at least from the company's point of view, I did not see anything being enforced by them, and the town did not get anything implemented until afterwards, until when it started getting worse, that they were asking businesses to shut down, that they started requiring for people to wear masks and, you know, protecting themselves. But other than that, it was work. We kept on working. We kept on having meetings, and, you know, kept on our daily activities.
Mm. And so, during the brief lockdown period in the Texas experienced in March, were you still in contact with your coworkers after you were told to go home?
Yes, we had text messages with a couple of phone calls to people just to make sure that they were okay, checking up on their families, especially because right before leaving, we had found out that some people were traveling back from Europe. And so they were being placed in quarantine in San Antonio, which is where they landed. And then just wanted to follow up on with their families to make sure that they were okay, that they had made it home with no issues. Um, yeah, but that's about it. I mean, just in contact with friends that we end up making at work.
Mm. And so, after you were let off because of COVID, how did you try and get back on your feet?
After I was, repeat the question.
Like, after you were let go, how did you try and get back on your feet? Because I know you said that you got some of the assistance from work and from unemployment. Have you tried anything else, like in looking
Well,
for jobs?
um, yes, in all of that time, I mean, it's difficult to actually find good jobs here in
Mm-hmm.
Brownsville because there aren't many. I'm still looking for some different jobs. I've been looking, you know, for all this while because trying to figure out what else I'm gonna end up doing. Um, but it's just difficult to actually have something available. I also trying to just find any other jobs that may be in San Antonio that where my family and I can actually move if necessary. But I like the town. I like being here in Brownsville. I lived here most of my life since I was 5. But I don't want to move unless I really have to. And you know, San Antonio is a place that I really like, and I have my sister there. But I don't know. It's just too many changes for my kids to, you know, go through. Still in school and trying to finish off. Um, so you know, just trying to find a job that I can actually do that will pay good money, but that's kind of difficult to find. So what I ended up doing is working on trying to get a small business running, and that's what I'm trying to work on at this moment. Still working, looking for a job, but trying to get an embroidery um, uh, business going. Um, so see, hopefully not have to rely on a job, you know, Monday through Friday job, but be able to sustain myself by selling these products that I can make here at home with the time available for, you know, me and my kids to be able to do our things here at home. But
Mm.
yes, hopefully I can get that business going.
Yep. And what were your thoughts on the government assistance that was provided for those who lost their jobs?
I don't think it was enough. It's, I mean, right away, I mean, I can tell you that it helps a lot because there's so much need. Um, I was very fortunate to actually continue to get severance pay, and I've been able to continue making my house payments, and my saved money that I've had can continue to help me make the payments for the house. But those people that don't have any backup money, that don't have any savings, that don't have any um unemployment money that's available, how are they going to make their payments for their apartments or their houses? They just can't. and the government doesn't see that. They just see, oh, it's money going out the door. We didn't ask for this, situation to come upon us. We're working fine, and everybody deals with their uh, activities, day-to-day activities, and issues that they have. There's different categories in everyone's lives. Um, at least we're fortunate to have to been blessed to have certain things. I can't say that I am a rich person as far as financially, because I don't have all the money that I wish I could to cover all of our expenses. I would not be going through unemployment. I would have had a business a long time ago, but the money was not available. I've been sacrificing a lot of my savings to get this business started. But I have to do this for my kids. I mean, they are the ones that I'm working for, to make sure that they have what they need. But it's just very difficult for the people that don't have money available. So this support from the government is very needed, and it should not be played in government for them to go back and forth, deciding who is going to be approving and not approving, and sending it or not sending it, and when they're going to do this, when it's going to be more beneficial for their party, their political party, and not for the other one. It's not fair to play politics with the people that need it. We need the money, and we need it now. And right now it's a difficult time because I've had a lot of expenses, but all of this money, all this assistance would help. I mean, we all pay taxes. We all pay our taxes. Like I said, I've been working since I was 17, 18 years old. No, 17. So it's been all my life, most of my life that I've been working. And I pay taxes, 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 taxes. I've never once requested for any assistance. Not once have I requested assistance. And for the government not to help me out in these moments that we actually need it, it's not fair. It's not fair. And
Yes.
so I can just imagine the other people that really have it difficult, that are about to lose their apartments, they're about to lose their places to sleep. Where are they going to keep their children and all that? So it's very upsetting, and I'm just glad and thank God that my kids and I have a house that we can actually consider home, and that we're safe here, But I don't know about the rest of the families. It's horrible not to be able to assist in that way,
Yeah. Is there anything else you wish to discuss about your work life?
Well, I really enjoyed my work that I was doing. Um, just trying to get day-to-day, activities going. I love the people that I work with. Very um, Everybody very caring, always very united. We always had very good groups of people that we work with very very well. Um, Management makes decisions, and they affect people, and unfortunately sometimes they don't see how it's going to affect um, a family, because they don't consider you um, a part of the business family. It's just numbers for them sometimes. So mm, I kind of get upset at the fact that you give everything to the company that you work for, and they might not appreciate it completely. That's at least the way I see it right now from my point of view. Maybe they do care, because I know that they ended up giving me a good severance package. It could have been a lot better, because I know that years back they would give extremely well severance packages to the people that they would let go. But it's different owners, that we had at that time. The company was different, and right now it's more trying to save the company money and not so much the interest of the employee. But I can't do anything about that. It's their business decisions. They're doing it for themselves, and I guess if I was in their shoes, I might be doing the same thing. I don't know. So rather than rely on a business, I'm trying to make one for myself, so that I can just rely on myself and my kids to help out with the business as well, and trying to get this small business going. Hopefully things can work out.
Mm. Okay, so I have some final questions. Um, Are you satisfied with the local response to COVID-19 in Cameron County?
For the majority, yes. They have done their part. I know that they could have done a little bit better at the moment when they started opening up the beach when we had the 4th of July. That was horrible. That really went bad. It was a wrong decision to make. Um, they should not feel pressured from government to do, open up and do this or whatever. If they see that people will go out and do what they usually do, and they're gonna care less because you've already lifted restrictions, they're gonna go out and do that. They don't see the risk, and I don't know why. Seeing the whole pandemic progress from March all the way to July, and the fact that we haven't, tried to reduce the number of people that are ill and the people that have died, they don't see that. It's like, why would you go out, and get your family at risk? We didn't do it. We did not go out. I mean, we have more common sense than that. But you see all of these people on the news, and they're, packed. The beach was packed. They didn't care. The city should have just closed all beaches and leave them closed, just like they did now for trick or treating in October. They should have done that in July, and not felt the pressure from government saying you need to open up. No, we don't need to open up. Not for things like that. We could have cut back on the number of people that have died, and who knows, maybe one of the persons that got sick around July was the one who infected my father. I don't know, but it's just the carelessness of people that are out there getting other people sick, that they don't care or that they don't believe. Those are the people that are causing the situation to get worse. So some decisions I don't agree with them, but in others I see that they're working to try and get more assistance for the town, for the county, to get us tested. They were actually opening up more locations, which we were very grateful for them doing that, because we have more slots available for people to actually get tested. And that's wonderful because they're doing that part. And I see that they're always trying to do the best for the county. But that decision of opening up bars and opening up beaches and parks and stuff for people to go and place, like, I did not agree with that.
Yeah. Are you satisfied with the state response to COVID-19?
Well, the state is in really bad condition compared to the rest of the country. I try to maintain, I used to do on a daily basis, keep up with how the COVID curve was going. But it gets very depressing after a while because it's just not getting any better. It's just, we see two slopes going, then the second one, and right now we're on the third one going up, and it's big waves coming. Texas is one of the worst states. We're way up there with Florida and I think California and New York. So it's not right. We might not have it here in our county, but the rest of the state is really bad. I think San Antonio, Houston is really packed. So it's not good for the state, but at least they're doing better here in the county. And we're just trying to do our part here in town to make it to where we don't continue to increase the numbers in our area.
Are you satisfied with the national response to COVID-19?
No. No, I mean, if the county wasn't that well, the state wasn't any better. Nationally, it's really bad. I can't believe that we're the number one country in the world that has COVID. It's like, come on. I don't even see the numbers from China anymore. It's like they stopped publishing them or something. I don't know exactly what happened there. That's not fair. They should put all the people that, they should be honest and actually put all of the people that have died in China and got sick. But they don't publicize that information. The rest of the countries do provide it, but as far as the world is concerned. But in the United States, all of these, it did not help with the fact that we had elections this year. And that just made things worse because people are going out and fighting amongst each other for their political parties and doing rallies and meetings and stuff like that, and not taking people into consideration. It's like they're taking their political party first before they can think about anyone else. It's like that's not fair. Don't try and get people to go do things that they shouldn't be out doing to begin with. They're not following orders, that the counties or the state have mandates to wear masks, and they get all excited about, you're not going to tell me what to do situations. It's like they're not thinking until they actually get affected. Then they're going to think about it, and then they're going to say, I should have followed the rules. I should have done this. But if the government doesn't start helping out, in putting these restrictions and saying we need to do something all together so that we can get things better in the whole country. Every state has to be doing their own and trying to get the lead from home. It's not happening. So hopefully we can get this pandemic into control, and we can start getting our numbers down in the country, in the state, in the county, and in our cities. So we'll be monitoring as time goes by, but I don't see this coming down anytime soon. We still have Thanksgiving, and families are going to travel. People are going to get together and have gatherings. We're trying to minimize the situation here, not to have so much gatherings in our family. We haven't had any since March. We're thinking that we're going to go ahead and just do kind of like a curbside situation. Here's your food and your items that you need for your family to eat, and then everybody will have the food that we cook. But we'll go ahead and get some Zoom phone calls, or meetings going, so that we can see all of our family together, at least through video conference. But we'll probably do the same thing in Christmas and New Year's, just to avoid at least our small part from our families, not to get things worse for the rest of the county. But we're considerate, other people are not.
Yeah. And as you said, this year is a special year because it's a presidential voting year. Did you vote? And if so, did you notice or do anything different because of COVID-19?
We did vote. I took my mom, I took my daughter. My second daughter was not able to get her voter's registration this year because of the pandemic. We had to have appointments set up that were months out. Our appointment for her identification was in August, when my father was getting buried. It was actually the same day and at the same time, for that weird coincidence. So we had to postpone her appointment to later on. So then our next available appointment was in December. That's past the election. We didn't get a chance to actually make it to where she could go out and vote. But we did our part, my daughter and myself. I took my mom. My sisters went to vote as well. And so we try to do, our part. We did notice that our counties here in the southern part of Texas, made it really well. We had a lot of voters. So it helped quite a bit, that we had more people going out and voting. It was different to go vote in your car. We have never done that. It's always been, in person that I go and I vote. But this time it was voting in the car so that we could avoid being in contact with other people, which was different. But, at least we had the availability to do that, and for us to be comfortable with being exposed to other people in the area.
Yeah, and is there anything else you would like to share with me about your experiences with COVID-19 that I have not asked about?
No, I mean, that's, I think I've talked quite a bit regarding all the situations that happen. It's not good. It's not, I'm not happy with it. Nor are my kids. I mean, they're used to, like, we would go to the library, once a month or so. We used to go out to the parks, just dining out, So we don't like the having to stay home situation, but we understand that it's necessary and that we have to do what we have to do. We're doing our part, to make things a little bit better. But I don't like it. I don't like it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we have to deal with it, and that's it. I mean, we're hoping not to get sick anymore. I don't want to get sick again. I really don't. I had it really rough. I thought I was going to go to the hospital, and knowing that my dad went to the hospital and did not make it out, me being, you know, um, susceptible to get sick from my lungs a lot easier, and being impacted with a breathing condition. No, I don't like it. I don't want to get sick again. I don't want my kids to get sick, or anyone to get impacted in my family or friends or anyone around here. It's not good. It's very sad, but we're having to deal with it, and we all have to deal with it together, so that we can get this illness out in control, and not have to have more people die.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's the end of the interview. Thank you for your time and for your stories.
Thank you.
I'm going to end the interview now.